This edition of MacVoices is brought to you by Smile, the makers of the brand new PDF Pen 6, PDF Pen Pro 6, and PDF Pen for iPad and PDF Pen for iPhone. Find out more about all the flavors of PDF Pen at smilesoftware.com. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the Talk of the Mac community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. I'm happy to welcome back to MacVoices Derrick Story. You know him as a digital photography expert. This time he's the author of iPad for Digital Photographers. Derrick, it's great to have you back. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, I'm just happy to be here. Really happy. Thanks.
Derrick, it's always fun to talk to you. It's always fun to listen to your podcast, to read your books. I always learn something. And of course, your blog, too. Let's not leave that out.
Yeah. But the written word still exists.
Yeah, in spite of what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Derrick, why iPad for digital photography, other than that great big gorgeous screen? What is it that makes the iPad so compelling to you that you decided to write a book about it?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with weight, really. When at the end of the day, one of the nice things about technology right now, both in the camera world and in the world of computing, is that we have lots of horsepower in packages that are much smaller than they were before. So instead of having to carry around a laptop, which used to be luxury living, right? Oh, I only have this laptop I have to carry around instead of a big iMac or a larger computer with a monitor and all that. But laptops, they still add pounds to the bag, and more importantly, they add size, right? The dimensions of a 15-inch laptop or a 13-inch laptop even. So now you can carry an iPad instead, and in my case, most of the time, an iPad mini, a micro four thirds camera or a compact camera. I still have a tremendous amount of ability to capture, to edit, and to publish, but in something now that fits in a small messenger bag over my shoulder that after 8 or 9 hours of being on the go, I still don't feel, my shoulders still feel great, and I'm not tired. I'm happy, and when I'm happy, I take better pictures.
When we're happy, we all do things better.
Yeah, I mean, fatigue is the enemy of creativity. So, when you're not tired, I think you tend to be more creative. You explore more. You'll take that road that maybe you would have overlooked before.
So you've moved from a laptop to an iPad, but what is it that you do in the field? I mean, I guess maybe I'm still stuck a little too far in the past because I'm not a photography guy. I tend to think of photographers as you go out in the field, you shoot, then you come home and start doing your manipulation. But are you actually doing it in the field?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. And I think one thing that people want to do whenever there's something new in the world of technology, they want to say, well, what can I totally replace that with? So, for instance, an iPad doesn't replace my computer. What an iPad does, it gives me another device that actually fits in between the camera and the computer, so that I don't have to use the computer only all of the time. And that's a distinction, I think, that people have to think about a little bit before they really start to grasp it. So, for instance, let's say I'm on vacation. Let's say I take a 3-day vacation to somewhere that's really beautiful. Before, I would have to take my laptop, which is fine. But with my laptop, there's all my work on there. There are all my clients on there. There's all that email and stuff on there. And maybe my family doesn't want me doing all of that work while we're on vacation. So instead, I could take an iPad, which is, I could set it up for all that stuff. I tend not to unless I have to, which is more of a fun device. While I'm on that 3-day vacation, I still can upload images to that iPad. I can process them. I can share them with my friends on Facebook or Twitter, Google+, whatever I happen to be using at that moment. And then when I get home, I can do my regular photography process where I upload all the images and the raw files into Aperture or Lightroom or iPhoto, whatever photo management application I'm using, and do the regular thing. So it doesn't cut out use of the computer. What it does is it allows me not to have to use the computer in every instance. And there's that may sound like a small distinction, but it actually turns out to be a very nice one.
I think that makes perfect sense. It turns the iPad into a little more of a one-purpose tool instead of the multi-purpose tool that your laptop is.
Yeah. Now, in the book, and by the way, we should show that. Can we show them a picture of the book?
Sure.
Sure. What it looks like here.
Sure.
See, is that how am I doing there? Is that framed pretty well?
That looks good. And I'll drop a graphic in too.
Yeah. So anyway, so in the book, we wanted to provide readers with the option for using the iPad more than just as a one-dimensional device. So I actually get into how to use it as a business tool, how to generate invoices on there, how to do model releases, all that stuff, so that if you did want to do that, you could. I think it's up to you on that sliding scale of how you use the iPad, where you decide you want to use it. And as we all do, we do that with our photography, with our mobile phones, all of that stuff. So, as you alluded to, you could use it as basically a dedicated photography tool, image editing and sharing, or you could move it all the way over to the other side where you're actually doing a lot of the things that you used to do on a computer on the iPad. It's sort of up to you. I talk about the whole spectrum in the book and then let people sort of configure what works best for them.
I would not have expected that. So you actually approached it as a professional photographer with all the things that you have to do in the field rather than just focusing on the actual act of photography.
Yeah, I do actually, because the device is capable enough to do a lot of professional level work. For instance, in the world of image organization and image editing, iPhoto for iOS, which is an app that I talk a lot about in the book, is extremely capable. I don't think a lot of people realize all the things that it can do and how powerful it is. Other tools such as Snapseed for image editing, again, very powerful, very capable tool. And I find that I can actually do things on the iPad. I create images, I play with images in a way that's different than the computer. So I may create something on the iPad that I would actually have a hard time emulating again, doing again on a computer when I get home. There is literally a different tool. And as a result, I tend to keep both files. I will keep all the work that I create on the iPad and put it in the same library in the end that I have all my raw files and the original files from the shoot. And a lot of times when I'm writing an article or sharing an image, I'll end up using that image that I created on the iPad for the article, because it has a certain amount of fun and creativity and experimentation that I might not normally do on a computer. So it's a different tool. It's a very capable tool, and it's definitely not a one-trick pony at all. Yeah.
At the risk of this being an obvious question, but you'll take it a little bit differently. Do you find that you are more creative or a different kind of creative given that you can touch the photo as opposed to working with a mouse or a trackpad on the desktop?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have found, for instance, let's say that on the flight home, I'll pull up some of my favorite images that I shot on the trip, and I'll just play with them on the airplane, and I'll just have literally, like you say, you literally have your hands on the image as you're playing with it. And I have found that I just try things, and I apply filters I wouldn't normally experiment with, and I play with compositions and stuff that I normally wouldn't. And I think the device itself, the iPad itself, encourages that. It's more immediate than the computer, and I think it sort of removes one of the barriers there that we sometimes experience when we're working with the pictures on a computer. Plus, not to mention, photographers actually, generally speaking, as a group, are resistant to change. In other words, they, as a rule, will discover something that works and want to stick with it, even to the point of if something new comes along, they'll try to mold it into their existing way of doing things. And so if you're staying on the same device you've been using for years, you're going to have a tendency to work the same way. It's just, gravity, so to speak. Whereas if you're on a whole new device with a whole new metaphor, I think then it allows you to maybe work in a different way without all of that old baggage. You're actually forced to work a different way because the device works differently. And I think there's something to that also. And one of the reasons why, I enjoy image editing as much on an iPad as I do on a computer, and I actually think I have more fun on the iPad than I do a computer.
That's a really interesting comment from someone like you with your background and your experience. I would have thought that, not that you got stuck in your ways, because you're not that kind of individual. You're too technology oriented, but that you would have found the most efficient, your favorite ways. And for the iPad to introduce something brand new like that, and to hear you talk about playing and just the twinkle in your eye and the sound in your voice sounds like you just delight in it.
It's true. It's true. Now, of course, a big part of my living is not getting stuck in my ways, because otherwise I would have nothing new to write about or nothing new to do a podcast about. So I'm continually, pushing that envelope, and my job is to be ahead of, of my audience. And a lot of times when I present these ideas to people, a segment of them will go, no, I'm just going to stick with the way that I'm doing it, which is fantastic. And then there's a whole nother segment that'll go, I'm going to try this. And then what they'll end up doing is shaping it for what works to them. So it might not be as far as I will take something, but they'll certainly find a comfortable spot for them in there. And I think, I have to tell you, I think a big part of not getting old, and especially not getting old in your mind, is to continue to do things to spark your creativity, your joy, your happiness, things that excite you, instead of, just saying, I'm just going to stay with the same old way that I've always been doing things.
Derrick, in the book, did you approach the iPad as a photographic tool, as an actual camera, or are you just not satisfied with it as a camera?
I start with it as a camera. In the beginning of the book, we start taking pictures with the iPad itself and talk about technique for that, apps for that. In fact, I even, on today's blog post, I actually have a post say, using the iPad mini as a camera, and I show different applications and how they render the photos differently and how to get the most quality and so forth. So I do that because I think there are folks that want to take pictures with the iPad. We see it all the time, right? When we're traveling, when we're on vacation, we see people, holding up their iPad and taking pictures of the world. And of course, I think it looks a little bit more elegant with an iPad mini than it does with a full-size iPad. But either way is fine. And, both devices take pretty good pictures. So yes, we do talk about that. Having said that, that is not my favorite way. My favorite workflow is to use a camera and then to send the pictures that I like from that camera to the iPad, use the iPad for tagging, editing, and publishing, and use the camera, separate camera for capture. That's my preferred way of working.
I can't let you get away with that. You send the photos over to the iPad. So talk a little bit about that. How do you get them there? Are we talking a camera connection kit, or do you have a wireless workflow that you can use in the field?
I do both. I carry the camera connection kit because it is a hardwire connection. So when all else fails, you can use that, and it works. And it works well. My favorite way these days is to go wirelessly. And there's one of two ways that I like to do that. One, cameras that have good Wi-Fi in them with a good companion iOS app. A current one that's just out is the Canon PowerShot N. It has terrific Wi-Fi and a good companion app, so you can just send those images, boom, right over to your iPad and save them to your iPad, work on them, do all that. And then for my other cameras, I use something called a Toshiba Flash Air card. It's about $49. It's an SD card that goes in any camera that takes SD cards, and inside that flash card, it can set up its own Wi-Fi access point. So unlike an iFi card that has to connect to an existing network, or it will begrudgingly set up an ad hoc network, the Toshiba FlashAir card, that's what it does. It just sets up a network, and then basically you log into that network with your iPad. It takes like 2 seconds, and then they just talk to each other. And since it's setting up an access point, then your computer can talk to it, your iPad can talk to it. You can use apps to communicate with it, or you can just grab pictures using the web browser, because it's basically just set up its own internet server. And I really like that a lot. It's a 8 gigabyte card. It sells for about $49 generally speaking. And if I'm using the Olympus OMD, or if I'm using my Fujifilm X20, whatever camera I happen to be out and about with, I just put that FlashAir card in there, and then I just share pictures. And that leads to like another thing, but I'll let you ask any questions if I got too far down the road there.
No, I think it's fascinating. The one question I would have about that is, since it's setting up a Wi-Fi network, it's got to be sucking its power from the camera. Does that create any battery life issues for you in the field?
You do get a little bit more battery drain with it, but it's actually not bad at all. And the card itself is set up to, after it's been on for a certain amount of time and not used, it'll turn off the access point. It's got some pretty smart things. But I'd say I probably lose 10 to 15% additional battery with the card. I carry extra batteries, not a problem. Batteries are small for these devices.
Yeah, that's not as much battery drain as I would have expected.
Yeah,
and it's that's got to be especially useful with the size of the photos that you're getting, the size of the files, I should say, that you're getting out of those cameras. These are not little point and shoots. They're pretty good sized files that you're moving across.
Yeah, and see, that actually leads to the next point. A lot of people, they in my audience especially, they want to shoot RAW. And, that's their thing. And they go, can I use my iPad with RAW? And you can, but I don't. I never send RAW files to my iPad. So what I do instead is I shoot RAW plus JPEG, and I keep the RAW files on the memory card. When I get home, I'll upload those to the computer, to Aperture, Lightroom, do all that stuff. But what I'll do is I'll only send the JPEGs over to the iPad. And when I use a Toshiba FlashAir card, for example, one app in particular that I like is made by Olympus. It's called Olympus Share, and I think they put 2 letters in there, OI Share, but it's Olympus Share. It will only grab the JPEGs, so it ignores the RAW files. So I shoot RAW plus JPEG. RAWs stay on the memory card. Fire up the iPad. I see all the JPEGs. I grab the JPEG that I want, and then I, do my thing, edit it, publish it, whatever. Because you don't need RAW files when you're publishing to Facebook or to Twitter or to Instagram or any of that stuff. This is not necessary. So I actually usually use JPEGs that are about, right around 2,400 pixels in size. A lot of times on my cameras, that'll be the medium size JPEG at fine quality. And that's all I need. And then that way the transfer rate happens much faster.
That sounds very smooth, and that's not a piece of equipment I'm familiar with. I have heard you mention it on the podcast, but I did not know exactly what it was or how it worked. So So I cover both the FlashAir card and iFi in the book. Because some people do have iFi cards, and so I wanted to give them a workflow for that. But personally, I think the FlashAir card is more versatile. And now, a word from Smile, the makers of the brand new PDF Pen 6 and PDF Pen Pro 6, the best utility for working with PDF documents. As good as PDF Pen and PDF Pen Pro were, PDF Pen 6 and PDF Pen Pro 6 are better. And now, both are even better with the recent update to version 6.0.2. Smile has added the option to toggle autosave in versions, has cut way down on memory usage, respects document permissions for the insert page numbers function, and lots more. And all that is on top of the ability to export PDFs to Microsoft Word, a new editing bar, Retina display optimization, drag and drop to reorder library items, The list just goes on and on. Whether you get PDF Pen 6 or PDF Pen Pro 6 from the Smile website, or PDF Pen 6 or PDF Pen Pro 6 in the Mac App Store, go get PDF Pen, or better yet, PDF Pen Pro. And don't forget about PDF Pen for iPhone and PDF Pen for iPad. PDF Pen is the essential utility for working with the PDFs you encounter every day. Thanks to Smile for their support of MacVoices. So what else is in the book? We've covered a lot here in a pretty short period of time. Some favorite apps, a couple workflows, the use of it as a tool for somebody at a higher, more pro level, and I really like that inclusion. You know, the model releases and all those kind of things. What else did you try to pick up in this book for us?
Well, another, I think, important chapter is building your portfolio and having a portfolio ready to go on your iPad. Your iPad is an excellent portfolio display device. Your images, anyone's images look pretty good on an iPad, which is terrific, right? And it's something that we have with us. But I think a lot of photographers, one thing that they don't get to is actually setting up the portfolio ahead of time. So, I mean, you can really kill the moment if you want to show someone some of your pictures and you're going, okay, and, oh, yeah, this shot here is good. And then, oh, where the heck is that? Oh, here it is. Well, this isn't exactly what I want, but this is not bad. You know, that kind of thing. I mean, it's a buzzkill, right? You know, and the person's, they're done with you after 2 minutes. So, you know, one of the things that I spent a whole chapter on is how to set up and build an effective portfolio with the hopes that you'll have it ready to go. So if someone wants to see your shots or you want to share your shots with somebody, you just open up your iPad, you go right there, you have a portfolio. You can just hand it to them, or you can stream it via AirPlay to your HD TV or to a computer, to a Mac, and share it with it that way. But you're ready to go. And I think that does a couple things. One is it keeps the person's attention. The other is, I think it says that, you know, you have a certain amount of competence as a photographer, because not only do you know how to capture pictures, you know how to present them. And I think it gives, right away, they're going to look at your pictures. They're going to give you the benefit of the doubt on your images. They're already thinking that you're good before you even show them a shot because of the way that you're able to present your work. So I think that's an important chapter, and it's one that I hope enthusiast photographers on up pay attention to.
No, enthusiast photographers on down. The situation you just described, I'm sure I'm guilty of, and I know I've been the victim of. So
yeah,
that's a chapter I want everybody to read.
And both sides of that equation are uncomfortable.
Very, very, very.
Another thing that I talk about, just before I forget, is movie making with an iPad.
Oh yeah, please.
And our cameras. They all shoot movies. The iPad itself shoots movies, and iMovie for iOS is an excellent movie application. And I have to tell you, Chuck, here's a confession that I haven't told many people, but I actually hate video editing. It's boring to me compared to photography. And but once I discovered iMovie for iOS and started making movies on the iPad, I actually like it. I actually like it. Again, there's some parallels to what I was talking about working with your pictures on an iPad. It just seems more fun. It just seems more fun. And I'm a big fan of the 1.5 to 3 minute movie. I think most movies that those of us that aren't Steven Spielberg make shouldn't be much longer than that, because I think people are used to things that are 30 seconds, 60 seconds, at the most 90 seconds in length in terms of television commercials and things that they see online. So, your movie shouldn't be that long to begin with. And the iPad handles movie making, especially short movies, very well. And then you can publish directly to YouTube or Facebook or wherever you publish your stuff right there from the iPad. And I spend a whole chapter on that, and also using your iPad for time-lapse photography using iStop Motion, another app that I think very highly of. So, suddenly you're going, boy, if you get bored carrying this device around, then, you just don't know what it can do.
I'm sitting here thinking that I've never been bored with my iPad. And I know a little bit about most of the things you've talked about. But once you put them all under the umbrella of photography or even videography on the iPad, it gives me a whole new appreciation for what I can be doing and what I should be doing with this device, and what everybody can do. They don't have to be a pro or even an enthusiast. They just have to have a little bit of curiosity and go out and run. And you keep coming back to that word fun, Derrick, and I think
Yes.
that's really important in this context, and it has to be for this book.
It is. It is. And, here's the thing that, in our life, we all have a lot of forced downtime, I'll call it. We're waiting in the terminal for a flight. We're on a bus commuting to work or a train. We have to wait in the doctor's office for half an hour before he'll see us. All that kind of stuff. An iPad mini especially is a device that you can just have with you. And suddenly all of those, what used to be annoying downtime, suddenly can become fun, creative time. And, that serves two purposes to me. One is that I'm just more efficient. I just create more stuff as a result. Second, when I do finally get into the doctor's office, I do finally board the plane, I'm not in a bad mood. Because when you're sitting there, sort of waiting, and, you kind of feel the frustration bubbling up and you're getting kind of angry, then you get on the plane and you go, yeah, I'll have a drink, and that kind of thing. Well, I'm not like that because, I had a half an hour is enough time for me to go through a dozen photos and maybe publish 2 or 3 to Instagram or Flickr. And then suddenly I've done something really neat, and then I get on the plane, and while I'm waiting on the tarmac, suddenly comments are rolling in of people liking the photo, and that's a positive thing. And it just turns that whole equation of forced downtime around from being something that's frustrating to something that actually can be very creative and fun.
Derrick, I saved one thing to wrap up with, because I heard you talk about it on your show, and I wanted to ask you to do it here in maybe from a little different angle. But when you were telling people about the book, you encouraged them to buy the print version.
Yeah.
Not that and you made a great point that, sure, if you're talking about an iPad photography book, it should be available on the iPad, and it is. But you encouraged the print version, and that surprised me a little bit.
Did it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it surprised. You're not the only one that's surprised. I think that was true. But there's a real reason for that. And as you said, I'm the digital story, right? So obviously, a digital copy of the book, I have to have that. I mean, that has to be there. And so it's on iBooks, and it's on Amazon, Kindle, and all that. But the thing about it is, and the reason why I like the print version is, first of all, if you buy it on Amazon, it's about the same price as the Kindle version. I think it's $14 and change for the print version and $13 and change for the Kindle version. What you get with the print version, though, is a layout and a presentation that we worked very hard on. The pictures look very good. Everything is where it's supposed to be, and it's a better presentation of the content. I've gone through the book both on the Kindle version and the iBooks version, so all the information is still there, but the presentation isn't as engaging. And that's because I didn't have complete control over that part of it, and so you may be looking at it on a one-pager, and a picture and a caption could get separated. The device will do that. Or, and we were designing everything as spreads, designed that way, and you may not want to, you may not think to do it in spreads, or it may not work for you on your particular device and all that. So the print version to me is just the best presentation of the material. That being said, I do have the iBook version because as a reference document, it's nice not to have to carry the book. I already have the iPad with me if I need to look up something, because I do forget stuff that I wrote and have to go back and look it up sometimes. Then obviously the electronic version is really nice for that.
it just was very interesting to hear you talk about it, and to hear you talk about it here, that we still, with all the benefits of digital publishing, there's still some areas where it needs a little work and it needs to be a little easier, and maybe you as especially as a photograph publisher, a photography publisher, need to have a little more or different kind of control.
Yeah, it's true, because I mean, one thing that I've noticed when I work with people at my workshops and everything, we just did an iPad workshop actually, which was a blast. But I'll go over to someone's iPad while they're working on something, and they'll have like the brightness turned down like 2/3, and they're doing image editing, on that. And I said, why is your brightness down so low? Oh, I just leave it that way all the time to conserve battery power. Well, you're not getting the full what the photograph has to offer when your brightness is down that low. So there's a lot of things that I just don't have control over as a content provider. Whereas in the book, it's set. It's set. Those pictures are those pictures, and and unless you're trying to read it in the dark, you're going to see it the way that we intended it. And Wiley did a great job on the book in terms of the production quality is very high.
I think all that's left is to tell people where they can go to get it and what it costs and all the details of all the different versions.
Yeah. I mean, I think the easiest place to get it, if you like to go to your local bookstore, it should be there if you have Barnes & Noble. And if it isn't there, tell them to get it in stock. Do me a favor.
Absolutely.
It's available, online at Barnes & Noble, on Amazon, at Wiley, all the normal places where books are sold. On Amazon right now, it's like $14 and change, so it's a great value. The normal price on it's $24, so you get a good price there on Amazon. It's also available in the iBook store, and also for the Kindle on Amazon. And when you go to the Amazon page, you can choose Kindle or print version. They present both to you, so it's available in all those places.
So buy 2 copies. Buy one for the presentation, the printed one, and then buy one for the iPad where you can do all the lookups and the reference.
Well, I would like that, but that's the best way to go. One other thing I want to mention is that books are books, right? So new information on a book stops when we send it off to the printer. Well, this is a changing world that we're in. I mean, we're going to see iOS 7, somewhere up the road here before too long. These apps that I write about are changing. So what I did was I created something online called the Book Owners Lounge. It's on my site, The Digital Story. And what I did was I put the link to that and the password to that in the book. And so the idea being that you have the book, it's your reference document, it has a lot of the techniques in there and all of that, but that we're going to extend the life of the book through the Book Owners Lounge. That's just for people who buy the book. And especially when we start talking about iOS 7 and everything, that's where I'll say, okay, here's a difference now, that you'll experience once you upgrade. So, just make a note. You can make a note in your book or however you want to do it, that, just make this adjustment for iOS 7 and you'll be fine. And I'm pretty excited about that. I think, and so far the response has been very good on it.
I think it increases the value or prolongs the value of the book, depending on which way you look at it, because that's something that a lot of us, and I'm one, who have gotten away from buying printed books because they do go out of date so quickly. And now the authors have the opportunity to do something about that with an online component. So I applaud you for it. I think it's a very, very good move.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. And we created a new section on the Digital Story called the Mobile Photography section. That's for everyone. And then, of course, then there's a special little link in there for people who have the book, so they can go to their own lounge and hang out with other book owners.
Yes, the secret clubhouse, yeah.
Yes, it is. That part's fun too, right?
Derrick, it's always fun. Take just one more second and tell everyone what all you do and where all they can find you, because you do so many things and so many of them are out there for us all to learn from.
Well, I'm a senior contributor for Macworld magazine, and I write for both online and the print version photography 9 times out of 10, but Mac-related photography. And then I'm a presenter for lynda.com, and that's lynda.com. And I have, I think, 21 titles there right now: Aperture, iPhoto, Flickr, how to take group shots, how to take portraits, all that kind of stuff is there. And then I do my weekly podcast on the digital story, and that's my home base. And the people that hang out there with me, that's our virtual camera club. That's our special place. So, and then I'm on Twitter and all of that too. So, but you could find out all about it all on the digital story. That's the home base.
And I want to put a plug in for the podcast, just because the podcast, you've done such a great job of having it feel like a one-on-one experience. About 99% of the time. I feel like you're just talking to me, even though you may be talking way over my head part of the time. But other times you hit me right between the eyes. But I always feel like you're talking to me. You do a spectacular job with that. So
I appreciate that. I like it when I'm at a conference or something, and someone will come up to me and they say, I really feel like I know you because I've listened to all these podcasts, and then I give my condolences, and then then I have a conversation with them.
Yeah, well, it works. It really does. It really does. The iPad for digital photographers, Derrick. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. It always is. We hope to have you back again soon. You're always welcome.
Thank you so much, Chuck. It's been a pleasure.
Folks, this is MacVoices, the talk of the Mac community. I'm Chuck Joyner. Please check out our website. I'll have links to everything that Derrick does, so you don't have to remember all that stuff because there's a lot there. And, of course, everything that we do at the MacVoices group as well. Until the next time, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, app.net, Google+, Facebook, and for more Apple, Mac, and tech-related shows, including MacVoices, Mac Notables, the Mac Jury, and the MacVoices Briefing. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com.